parents, teachers, coaches, you've showed up. You know, every day you're trying to develop and support people. So you know what it's like to experience resistance or opposition, right? And that's what we're here to talk about. Over the years, I want to ask you, like, um, have you ever felt like you're hitting a wall? Like, have you ever felt like you're hitting a wall in your efforts to engage the people that you're responsible for? I want to see it in the chat. How many times have you been frustrated or fascinated about, getting resistance from the people that you're trying to, motivate, the people that you're trying to engage or change or inspire? Awesome. I'm seeing the chat. The other thing I wanted to say is folks, today, I love this. I love when you bring your experience. I love when you challenge us. Today, we're going to explore this thing so that we are frustrated less, fascinated less, fascinated in the good way. We're going to explore why humans hold back. We're going to talk about what's this thing we call resistance. I'm going to share some of the things I have changed the way I practice and what have led to me and some of our team members getting unstuck and struggling less. Not only where we're going to lower opposition or decrease opposition and resistance, but where we've actually eliminated it. But I want to hear from you. I get passionate about our approach and all that kind of stuff. So I want to hear from you in the chat. It's already started. It's already lit up. You can talk to each other. We love seeing conversations between people in the chat. Say hi, connect. The biggest thing is I also want to validate and affirm what you know already to be true, and I want you to challenge me. There is a question and answer area button. You can put your questions in there. This area of resistance and opposition is one of the areas that has caused the most conflict and the most damage in personal and professional relationships. So it's important. It's important to get it righter, but also at the same time, it's important to challenge each other in a respectful way so that we can learn from each other. So challenge the material, share your experiences, and we've got someone tuning in from the PA, Manitoba, Opaskwayak Cree Nation out there. I love it. Okay, here we go. Let's get to it. I've had the privilege of working with many different populations. Here's some of the populations, some of the groups that I've worked with and I'm still working with. I want to see it in the chat. You've worked with some of these groups currently, maybe in the past. Which one, if you had to guess, which group would pose the most resistance and opposition, would you say? Right? Is it CEOs? Is it social workers? Is it teachers? If you were to choose, and we're kind of having fun here, I see in the chat already. Right? What group would you like? Look on the left, like it's foster kids, gang members, violent inmates. I've worked with all of them. And what's interesting is, sometimes we feel that certain groups or certain people have a tendency to be more resistant, right? But the reality is all of us do. And what's wild to me is as I continue in my work with CEOs and surgeons and great people in mining and medicine and manufacturing and children's mental health, we're built for awesome things. We're built to do great things, but we're also, as human beings, we also hold back. We have the potential to hold back, to resist, to oppose, right? And that's what we're here to talk about. Why do you think, this is wild, why do you think, I love seeing the chat, why do you think people would actually resist something that they even agreed with, or it's their own plan? Have you ever been in that situation where somebody actually puts something forward and then they oppose that or resist that? So everyone here, and thank you for being here, you all know what we're all doing the same thing. It's all about influence, right? We're all trying to influence people to think better, to do better, to behave better, to perform better. In our lives, it's to relate better. I see teenagers in there, right? I always say to people, do you remember being a teenager, right? Have you worked with one? Right? We're trying to get people to better and trying to connect, right? That's all we're trying to do, to connect better, communicate better. How about cooperate, contribute? Okay. Now I see things in the chat around different experiences. We're going to talk about this thing, resistance, and I love that people are already having conversations. What is resistance? Let's keep it simple. It's basically the act of resisting, right? We also know it as opposition. Okay. Now this is really, really important. The act of resisting opposition. So we're going to come back to that. We've all experienced it in different ways, and there's a lot of types as well. I'm just going to, there is the disengagement and dismissive. I'm going to go from least problematic to most problematic, right? Based on my experience, the disengagement and dismissiveness. Have you ever experienced that? That's where people, a bit of apathy, or it seems like they're passive, seemingly disconnected or not committed. How about passive non-compliance? So they're moving into maybe they're not apathetic, but they're not cooperating or participating. Maybe they're holding back, not following through. Maybe they're submitting things, but it's poor quality. Avoidance and withdrawal. So we're like going up a little bit to things that may cause us a little bit more stress. Avoidance. Have you ever experienced this, where people actually avoid appointments, avoid conversations, avoid expectations, withdraw from the things that they said they would do or that they're responsible for? Verbal defiance and negativity. Now we're upping it a little bit, right? This is where we're actually getting, I don't know, or it doesn't matter, or whatever. How about direct opposition? Direct opposition really is about, just opposing what we have for them, right? Or verbal defiance. How about overt, private, or public defiance? And finally, intimidation. And there's the final one, which is destructive behavior. Now, most of us to some degree have experienced these. Now, if you look at this list, I love seeing in the chat, if you look at this list, is there a certain type of resistance that's harder for you or more challenging for you? Like, is there one that you're like, that's the most challenging type of resistance and opposition? This might surprise some of you, but after my work with gang members and some very difficult situations, I actually prefer the overtly defiant. Right, and I'll tell you why. It's the quiet people. It's the quiet, like not saying anything. Whereas more of the defiant opposition, we kind of see it. It's on the radar. It's tangible, right? I see some sabotaging in there in the chat. The dirty yes, agreeing to something, but fully intending or not following through. Now, I'm going to say, Jackie, we got to be careful on that one, right? Were they intending not to follow through when they actually? So we're gonna do some of our own research in just a minute, right? So I love that you said that, because I think we've all been there. So which one do you prefer? And here's the thing: there's lots of reasons. So we've got some feedback from people saying, it's really nice to not have Steve in the little box. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and ask you about your own experience. There's tons of reasons for resistance and opposition, right? There's tons of reasons why, right? We can guess why. Actually, let's guess. That's what we're going to do right now. We're going to guess. I'm going to give you two scenarios, okay? And I want you to keep chatting in the chat, right? And I also want you to submit questions, the questions and answers if you can, because we're going to get to those. It's my favorite part of the webinar, is having people ask questions. So here's the thing. Let's start with Kyle. Let's start with a common, these are very real situations, and I have lots of references. So let's guess. You ready to guess? Kyle is a former gang member who's 17 years old. He's in residential group care, and he has been avoiding his meetings. Actually, he's been avoiding all of his planning meetings and meetings with specialists. And when he does attend, he gets violent. He gets very violent. He hasn't been at his meetings. He's been resisting and opposing going to those meetings for over 2 years. Why don't you throw in the chat? Let's start guessing. What are some of the reasons? And we're permission to guess. Why do you think Kyle is avoiding or resisting going to these meetings? I'd love to hear from you. Permission to guess, right? We've got fear, scared, right? Scared, negative previous experiences. Awesome, right? Mistrust. You've got it. His truths are I love it. This is going so fast, right? So there's so many in the chat. All right, I can't even keep up. This is awesome. So here's the thing. Which one? Who's right? How do we know? So awesome. It's probably a bit of all of those. I'm going to come back to what it really was, because I have Kyle's story. Here's another one. You ready? Totally different example. CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in Canada. Let's call him Mark. And Mark put out a call very adamantly to have his team and some consultants, I was one of them, to build a comprehensive global leadership program. Like, it was exciting. Each time the team kept going back to present to the CEO on this program, it was getting more and more played down, minimized. Maybe it's not going to happen. And then they were worried that it was literally going to be shut down altogether. So it was his idea, wanted it badly, but each time the team presented everything that they thought he wanted, they were getting shut down. They're getting resistance. What do you think? Anybody have anything in the chat? What do you think was happening in that moment? Power struggle? Oh, that's a good one, Alexander, right? What do you think? Why do you think, what were some of the reasons you might guess a CEO would be would be saying, I don't want to do it, or we're not going to do it in that way. Lack of transparency, lack of communication, no expectation setting. Wasn't really his idea. Look at all this, right? Overwhelmed with too much information. This is great. Good stuff. Keep it going. We can guess all day long. Here's the things. Before we get into you, because I want you to be the research. It's one of my favorite things as a recovering academic. There was tons of narratives. So you guys have got some really good guesses. Did you know what I heard about Kyle? That he was apathetic. He was lazy. He was manipulative. He was aggressive. He was opposite. He actually had the diagnosis, oppositional defiant disorder, ODD. I also heard lots of narratives about Mark. You may have heard some of these about some CEOs. Arrogant, egotistical, manipulative, narcissistic. Interesting. Almost the same or different variations, though, of those narratives and those labels. So it's interesting. Great stuff in the chat, right? So here we go. I want to go back to the definition of resistance, the act of resisting. Was Kyle resisting? Was Mark resisting? Let's go to you. Let's go to your experience. Okay. I want you to be the research. Okay. Now, I'm going to say to you, you do not have to put anything in the chat that's personal, but I want you to connect with your experience because I know you're going to remember this one. I want you to connect to a time. Christina, Brandy, Sonia, Mark, everybody here, I want you to go to your experience. Sarah, do you remember the time you had an idea? You're in a room, maybe it was of one or more people, and you were really passionate about an idea. You were like so passionate about it. It was important to you. It mattered to you. You wanted to share it. And you were in a room with some people and you were maybe a little bit hesitant. And they said, Stephanie, they asked you, Deborah, Brendan, do you have any thoughts on this? Do you have anything to say? And you said, no, I don't. Do you remember that time? I want to see in the chat. Do you remember that time you had something to say? Somebody asked you what you had to say and you said nothing. 100%. That's a lot. Max, I'm not good at math, but I think it's pretty high. So what's going on? How about this? Remember that meeting? You were like, everyone was talking, everyone was getting along, and someone walked in, and all of a sudden it went like radio silent. And the people that walked in said, well, it's really quiet in here. And you're kind of thinking it just wasn't. So I want you to be the research. I want you to go back to that time. How about a time? Here's the thing, because I know the people that showed up here, you're not bad people. You're awesome. And thank you for being awesome. Thanks for taking time out of your day to be here with us. Do you remember that time that you agreed to do something? Now, I want to be clear. You agreed to do something that you were fully capable of. Not that you couldn't do. Like sometimes we say, oh, I'll do that for you, and we don't even know if we can do it. I'm talking about a time that you said, I'll do it, and you didn't do it. Right? So here's the thing. Let's go back to your first one. Okay. I see it's very rare, but I see it. I see people say in the chat that they always speak up. I would love to hear more about that. Most of us, let's get back. So I'm gonna present on something we call, some of you have heard this, okay? And I want you to challenge this. I want you to question some of the things I'm about to share, because we're gonna move into why we hold back, where resistance and opposition really comes from based on my research and based on what we know at Brivia. So here we go. I'm gonna share the screen. We got feedback that sharing the screen and not sharing the screen is helpful sometimes. So what we're gonna do is this. I'm gonna put these up. If you've been to our webinars or you're our partners, and some of you are here, I'm not gonna get into it. There's another webinar on our Brivia page where you can get the whole 3 great states with Dr. Tim Pitchell, the guru on procrastination, Dr. Gene Clinton, who wrote Love Builds Brains. But I just want to touch on them because I want to connect with your experience, not Kyle's and not Mark's. Safe, so we know that these 3 conditions, when we feel safe, significant, situated, I'll explain them briefly, but then we're going to move on. Safe means, and when we're feeling safe, significant, situated, we're doing awesome. We're not holding back. We're actually unstoppable. We're sharing our mind. We're sharing our heart. We're sharing our hands. Safe is really about feeling safe, emotionally, physically. It's about comfort. It's about trust. That's what safe is. And these 3 great states happen in 2 places, in our relationships, and they happen in the environment. So safe, you know what it feels like? Trust. It's comfort. It's also confidence. Well, what's significant? Significant is I feel like I matter. I feel like we matter, or this idea matters, or what I'm doing, my contributions matter. That's significant. When we feel significant, we feel like we matter, we feel valued and valuable. Situated, what's that? Situated is about clarity. It's about knowing what direction we're going in. It's about knowing roles, responsibilities, and situated is about predictability. We know what's going to happen next. So let's go back to the definition of resistance, the act of resisting. Now I want all of you here to go back to the experience where you remember holding back or slightly holding back. Now, some people said I share a little bit. Yeah, that's still holding back, right? Now think about this for a second. Let's use the 3 great states. You were passionate about an idea. You wanted to say it. Now we're talking about sharing something, but this can also be your behavior, like doing something. So I want you to go back to the experience. Let's start with the first one, safe. There was probably a really good chance that in that moment when you were asked to share, you didn't feel safe, that you didn't trust maybe the person or the people there. Maybe you weren't feeling comfortable. You couldn't put your finger on it. But you held back. You resisted. You opposed, right? Because you were reluctant, because you didn't feel safe. Maybe it wasn't that. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to significant. Maybe you weren't sure that what you were about to say was going to be valued. Maybe you weren't sure that what you were about to say was going to be valuable or respected. Maybe worse, maybe you were worried that what you were about to share was going to be criticized or judged harshly. Maybe it wasn't that. Let's say it's not safe. Let's not significant. Let's go to situated. And I want to see in the chat if this resonates with you. Sometimes we hold back because we don't know what's going to happen next. We can't predict where this is going to go, how it's going to be received, or how about this? We don't even know, is it going to go, where is it going to go after this? Who's going to hear about this? So it's really important right now, folks, and let me see in the chat if you resonate with this, that sometimes you hold back your thoughts or your behavior because you're not feeling safe. Sometimes you hold back because you're not feeling significant. You're not feeling valued, or that what you want to do or say matters or is going to be valued. And sometimes you hold back because you're not clear on what's going to happen next. Right? See, this is one of the biggest reasons why humans hold back. Right? And I've worked, and again, I'm going to tell you, I don't brag when I say I worked with some of the most resistive and oppositional folks on the planet, and still do, but there's nothing wrong with them. So this is really, really important. Awesome. Look I love the chat. Some people need to feel situated. They need to be clear, right? If you want to do a really cool experiment just to test this out, right? And the reason why I like you being the research and not Mark and not Kyle and not 7 out of 10 people need to tell you what your experience is for it to be real is try this out. Find 2 people, like one that you know really, really well, that you've got a strong relationship with, where there's 3 great states, safe, significant, situated. And just say, can you do something for me? Okay. Just say, hey, babe, hey, friend, hey, brother, hey, sister, can you do something for me? And I bet, and you can email me if this happens, that they'll just go, oh yeah, what is it? Then I want you to choose somebody that you just met, like maybe ranging from at the bus stop to in a restaurant, and just walk over and say, hi, I'm Steve. Can I ask you to do something for me? And I bet you the 2 words that most people will say is, it depends. Try it. You know, it depends. What does it depend on? It depends on, am I going to be safe? It depends on, does it matter to me, or is it significant? And it depends on, well, what is it? Like, where am I going? What am I going to, it depends on a very important question that we ask ourselves based on the 3 great states. Am I going to be all right? And if the answer is maybe or no, we hold back. And this is really important to know as we get to the tools. So I love seeing in the chat, folks, for some people it's situated. That's what they need more importantly. For others, it's significant. For other people, it's something else. Maybe it's a combination. Okay, so I'm going to move on, because here's the big lesson I learned from working with all of those populations. And we're talking from the foster kid to the commanding officer of an F-35 pilot squad. Is that all of us as humans, when we don't feel one or more of the three great states, we slow down, we shut down, we hide or hold back, and that's perceived as resistance by other people. And sometimes, I don't know about you, we push back. So, what are the strategies? And I want to hear your questions. So please, I think I see there's already one in the question and answer. I want to hear your questions on this resistance and opposition stuff. It's so important, right? It's like I said earlier, it's one of the major sources of conflict and stress. So here we go. What's the first strategy? Do what you can to create the three great states, right? You're already doing. I know if I followed Melissa around her health region, so good to see your name, Melissa, by the way. You're doing these things 100 times a day. You're doing things to keep people safe. You're doing things so that they feel they're significant. You're doing things where they feel they matter or their contributions matter. You're doing things, whether it's a memo or an agenda or a detailed job description, where they feel situated. When you do an interview and you say, before we get started, are you comfortable? The bathroom's over there, situated. Thank you for being here. Significant. Are you ready to begin? Safe. Boom. Once you learn the three great states, it becomes an absolute game changer. And as a matter of fact, it was my work with gang members where the three great states revealed themselves. And by the way, for those people earlier, I don't know how long Dr. Jean Clinton has been on here, but she's on here. She's one of my best friends, one of the biggest hearts, biggest brains in the world. Some people on the chat said they love you, Jean. She's here. So you can say hi to Jean Clinton, Dr. Jean Clinton, everyone. Dr. Jean Clinton makes me feel safe. She makes me feel significant and she makes me feel situated. And what's awesome is when I'm around her, and this is how this works, folks, with your kids, with your partners, with your staff, with your team, is we show up. We don't hold back. Now, that's just the beginning. Because something I want to share with you folks is another strategy. And before we get to this, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to stop sharing just so I can speak to you about something really, really important. I don't know if Jean's heard this. I know Brenda, I shared with her. I'm going to share with you one of the biggest things that led to this new model of elevating potential and performance, which the book is going to be released in October. I'm so excited about it. We're verifying it with so many different people in hospitals, in mining, parenting. And I want to share with you one of the things that led to my success. Now, I'm not bragging about my success because I still struggle a lot, but I struggle less and I have more successes. And what led to my success was this idea of how we thought about resistance and opposition. I want you to go back to your experience. A lot of us, when we experience resistance and opposition, we have these beliefs that resistance is coming from inside the other person. Like there's something, it leads to like, it's a defense mechanism, right? A lot of us have this idea that resistance is bad or is wrong. And like, as soon as we feel it's like, okay, what's his play? What's he doing? What's she doing? What are they like? Why are they like, we automatically have this. I think we can thank Freud for that. He might've been the first to really write about resistance as a defense mechanism. See, here's the other thing that happens is once we experience resistance, we believe it needs to be interpreted. How do I know that? Because often when people get resistance and opposition, they call me and go, oh my gosh. Or we go to the boss to talk about the employee, or we go to the psychiatrist or psychologist to talk about the person we're struggling with. Or how about in a school? The second we experience opposition and resistance, I worked in schools for 10 years, we go to the guidance counselor and say, hey, what do you think? Right? So often we believe that resistance and opposition requires interpretation, and we all start guessing, and they're great, well-intentioned guesses, but it's got nothing to do with their experience. The other thing that we do believe, that we've been taught, is that resistance requires, after the interpretation, do you know what it requires? One of two things: incentives or discipline or punishment. Right? And we've all been there. Okay, we can't get her to cooperate, so let's tell her we'll give her privileges. we can't get him to, do this report. So we're going to tell him we'll give him time off. Well, if he goes long enough, something, maybe we're going to put him on a PIP, right? So we have all of these mechanisms in place when we experience resistance. And here's the big news flash. I have no slide for it, but I've got a couple slides coming up. One of the biggest things I've learned in my journey, and I see some people have already mentioned it in the chat, is that unintentionally, okay, we're all good people. There's nothing wrong with us. That's the alternative name for the book that I'm writing. There's nothing wrong with you. Is that most of our approaches to opposition and resistance create more opposition and resistance. And that leads to a lot of unnecessary suffering. So where do we go from here? How do we change that? Well, the very first, create the 3 great states so that we eliminate some chances of it happening. And one of the next things, I'm just trying to find my slide. I'm trying not to, all right. Can you see the slide? Let me know in the chat. Do I have the right one up? Rethinking and redoing it. Awesome. Thank you so much. So here's the thing. First thing, this is what changed my level of success, my level of fear, my level of struggle and stuckness with everybody I work with, is I had to shift the way I thought about resistance. If I thought it was bad, if I thought it was people's fault, if I thought they were manipulating me, if I thought it needed to be interpreted, if I thought that's why we were stuck. So number one, these are principles that I follow to this day. Number one is opportunities for discovery, right? If we look at resistance as this is an opportunity to learn, this is an opportunity to grow, now, is it still frustrating? Yeah, I don't want to minimize your experience. But see, resistance and opposition is something that once I started running to, instead of running away from, it changed how I approached it. I was less scared. I was more confident. I knew I was going to learn something. Here's the other thing, the other principle. It must be honored and respected, no matter how frustrated you are. If we minimize, it's like the fire. You hear that thing, you must respect the fire or you're going to get burnt. Resistance is the same. It must be honored and respected. Because if we don't honor resistance and opposition, or what's reluctance and apprehension, everybody's at risk of it getting worse. So we don't minimize it. We don't, even when I go into situations, even though my confidence is high, I never minimize it, we're going to turn this person around and we're going to eliminate this. And I respect it. And I go in there going, we're going to learn, but we have to respect. And that leads to the third one. And this is hard for some people. We've got it that person's experience is legitimate. Remember when you held back, everyone? Do you remember? Look at almost everybody in here said they held back. So great question, Eric. How do you honor and respect, or how do you honor and respect resistance? Well, that's honoring something is minimizing it or playing it down, right? Like saying, oh, Eric is just being a child, or Eric is just trying to be difficult, or Eric is just we're minimizing it like this. Versus I say to people in the room, we got to respect that Eric is behaving in this way, and we got to honor it, because if we don't, we're going to make it worse by virtue of our approach to it. Is that helpful, Eric? Let me know in the chat. Great question. That leads to number 3. Eric's experience is legitimate. Remember that time you held back everybody? Everybody connected to their experience. Remember that time you said you were going to do something and you didn't? I already know you weren't being a bad person. I already know that you weren't trying to manipulate somebody. Whatever experience you had that brought you to be reluctant or apprehensive, you have the right to have that experience. And I'll tell you, when I met corrections officers who were super angry, or I met gang members who never felt heard, and I remember saying, you know something, Jim, I'm sorry you had this experience. You have every right to be mad, not to behave this way. This is important. Letting somebody know and acknowledge and affirm their experience does not mean you agree with it. I think this is very, very important. You have a right to hold on to that thought, to that action, to that contribution, until we give you a reason to let it go, okay? You can see in the chat, Brenda has added the importance of approaching resistance and opposition with care and curiosity, right? And that is a way of honoring it. And finally, it must be approached with the goal of understanding. This is so important. A lot of this stuff is could be bumper stickers, but these 4 things changed and I know we have some of our partners here, right, has changed the approaches that we take, and with the goal of understanding. Now, this is what I mean by that. If, if Sarah or even Jean, my friend Jean, appears apprehensive or resistive or oppositional, right? See, often we will try to interpret it. Eric and I and Sarah will talk and we'll come up with a plan, and then we'll try to change Jean. That's a recipe for making it worse. Now, if she cooperates, we're fluking out. But see, a lot of times, I say this saying, it's one of my favorites. We can't leave a place unless we arrive. We cannot leave a place of this behavior, this apprehension, this reluctance. And notice I shifted from opposition and resistance to apprehension and reluctance. They're softer words. Saying Jean is oppositional makes me feel like, oh my gosh, we're ready for a fight, right? Saying that Eric is resistive means like it's back to those negative interpretations or beliefs that undergird those. So when I say, Eric seems a bit apprehensive, or Max is a bit reluctant, when we see those words help us soften this a little bit. And our goal must be to understand Jean, not to change her. Because we cannot leave this place unless we arrive at an understanding of, is she situated? Is she clear? Were we predictable? Does she feel significant? Does she feel like she matters or that she's valued? Does she feel comfortable or confident? Like, we can't leave this place with Jean unless we figure out what her experience is. That's why we must approach with the goal of understanding and not changing. And there, somebody played the pan flutes, right? This is that Zen thing. If you search to understand, you'll end up changing it. If you assert yourself to change it, you'll never understand it. Right. Awesome. Great chat. I'm seeing some really good stuff. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Jean, Brenda. I love it. I love some great things in there. Sarah, approaching it with curiosity. She likes that. Keep lighting up the chat, right? I see that sometimes there's challenging when there are interim changes within your core group that does not understand the individual strengths of the team. That's another thing, right? Thank you, Joanne. It's about a misunderstanding. Whenever we have a misunderstanding of someone's strengths, we're edging into two things: a lack of clarity or lack of being situated about what their strengths are, but also a lack of significance. Because if we don't know their strengths, that's a really big part of the puzzle that matters. They might feel like they matter. So we're outside of that. I love it. Somebody asked the question, can you repeat that on if you search to understand? Yeah. So making your goal to understand the person's experience. What do they need? What's important to them, like as it relates to the 3 great states, versus trying to change them, right? So instead of trying to get Bill to get this report in, and I'm like, get it in, I'm going to sit with Bill and say, hey, Bill, help me understand what's going on, right? And we're going to get to that. Great, Alexandra. I'm going to move into the next strategy. So we got 2 strategies. 1, create the 3 great states. 2, change how we think about resistance so we can change how we do it. And coming on the heels of Alexandra's great question is, some of you have heard this. This is known as the $1 billion question, and we are going to send you the 11-minute video with it. I know some of you have already seen it, right? Do you remember Kyle? People said that he was manipulative, he was, violent, he was, all of this stuff. Mark, same thing. The question that we were missing when we were all guessing the reasons why they were being reluctant and apprehensive was a very important question, which we call the $1 billion question. What do we know about Bill not submitting that report after saying he was going to submit it from his perspective? Nothing. See, this is what usually happens. Here's another experiment. I gave you one experiment already. Try this other experiment, right? You can watch this video. It's being recorded. We're going to send you the link. Whenever someone's complaining to you about somebody, like, oh, Kyle's this, or Bill's this, or Eric, or Sarah, just, she's that person from that place, just ask them the first half of the question. Just say, well, what do you know about this? And in most cases, people just continue with a whole series of narratives. It's because they're from here, it's because they're men, it's because they did this, and they just literally will outline tons of reasons why they're being resistive or oppositional. But if you ask them the whole question, what do you know about this from their perspective? The answer is always nothing until you hear from them. And it's really, really hard, because what do we know about the person showing up late for the meeting consistently? Nothing. What do we know about the person that said they were going to be on the webinar because they're so important, Steve, I'll never miss one, from their perspective, and they've missed them? Nothing. So I've got one of two choices. One, I can let it go, or two, I can go and have a conversation with the person, which is going to lead us to strategy number 4. And of course, I don't want to minimize that these are all really simple tactics. These will get you a ways for sure, no doubt. But at Brivia, we have built so many strategies and we'd love to help. So reach out if you or your team or your organization. The Getting to Better newsletter, by the way, I'm going to plug that at the end. That's where we're going to offer free resources, create a community where we can do more great things. So this is the $1 billion question, folks. We'll also send you, put your questions in the chat. I want to hear from you. Are you agreeing with these strategies? Are you disagreeing? Are you using them? Keep the chat going. We're going to get to strategy number 4, which is one of my favorites. And Alexandra, let me know if I answered your question. Strategy number 4. That almost sounded like Mamba number 5. So strategy number 4. I'm going to put them all up. 3 parts. At Brivia, we like to do things in simple, practical, actionable ways. As Steve de Groot, I love 3s. And here's 3s for you. Connect, comment, and check in. And it goes like this. How are you doing, Brenda? Correct me if I'm wrong on this. It was my understanding that we would attend all meetings. I believe that included being on time and prepared. And this is where I just described the behavior. I do not make assumptions. This is the comment piece. You've missed the last 2 meetings and showed up late today by 30 minutes without your notes. I'm concerned. Can you tell me about that? What's really neat about this approach, the reason why it's one of my favorites, is because it works. It works. Notice, how are you doing starts with safety and significance, right? I care more about you, relationship over rules, relationships, right? People over policy, right? Goodness over goals, right? Got 100 of them. How are you doing? And then look at number 3, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for you. I'm concerned for the team. I'm concerned for the organization. I'm concerned for the family. Can you tell me about that? And that gives them an opportunity to share their perspective. Right? Okay. All right. We're going to open it up to questions soon. So that's strategy number 4. False advertising, right? I said there's going to be 3 strategies. The 3 great states alone gives you a combination of many, right? So what do we got to do? Whenever we experience reluctance or apprehension, which we've called opposition and resistance and given it that negative connotation, before we interpret it, before we try to manage it, before we try to intervene, we ask ourselves, what do we really know about this? Let's rethink resistance so that we can redo it. It's not a bad thing. It's just something that is worth exploring and discovering. Where? The 3 great states. In the relationship or in the environment. Because when we're experiencing one or more of the 3 great states or all of them, we're performing, we're talking, we're showing up, we're unstoppable. And then when we are concerned, we start with the $1 billion question. What do we know about this? Nothing. And we can move in by connecting, commenting, and checking in. All right. Just as a starting point. So I want to hear from you. It's time for questions. It's time for, I'm going to go to the question area for a second and see there's something in there, right? All right. So I've got an anonymous question, and keep the questions coming, folks, because this is the part of the webinar where I'm just going to answer questions. And and sometimes the best parts of this webinar are the questions that take us in a direction that we would have never gotten to. So we've still got some time left. There's a couple of questions in the chat, in the question and answer area. The first one is, how do I inspire someone if they're not showing interest? Okay, that's a very common one, right? I would be concerned, well, what does interest mean? So what is the behavior? So what are you concerned about? Because not being interested can look different, right? The next thing I would say is, and we don't talk about in this, but here comes another strategy. Go back to a time when they were interested and ask them what was happening at that time. right? Whatever interest it is, whether maybe it might be energy or focus or level of effort. So figure that out in terms of what it is and start by going, what does that mean to you? And two, focus on their strengths and when things were better. Okay, just as a starting point. You can also comment and say, I notice, and this is very important because interest, some people say, well, you're not interested. And they'll say, well, I'm totally interested. So what is the behavior that you want to comment on? Was it they were performing at a certain rate and now they're not? Were they showing up and now they're not? So were they energetic and positive and now that shifted? So make sure you've got something concrete that you can comment on. It's a great question. It's a great question. All right. There's another question here. There's more questions. How do you deal with your own resistance as a leader, knowing that you have to show up to support others? Okay. Wow. That's an interesting question. I'd be curious, Melanie, if you're okay, what you mean by your own resistance as a leader. Is that like your own reluctance, your own apprehension about showing up for people on your team? I'd like to know a little bit more if you can put that in the chat. Okay, your own reluctance. Okay, awesome. Good one. Thank you, Melanie. I love that you're human, everybody. Right? We've got to support some of us. Somebody put in the, I think it was Sonia, teenagers, right? So you're right. Some days we look at certain people or we engage in them and we're maybe frustrated, maybe we're irritated, maybe something's bothering us, and our level of energy or focus or commitment or effort is low. And I like that Jillian sees that as well. By the way, Jillian, I sent you a LinkedIn message. Sorry, I could use this to send out messages. So what do you do? Number one, Melanie, this is a great question. Number one is you start with your own. What do I know about this from my perspective? So you turn the $1 billion question on yourself. What do I know about not feeling motivated or enthusiastic or focused or energetic to help or support this person? Okay, you ready? There's another set of questions. What do I need? What's important to me, right? What am I hoping for? Now, this is important because when I used to do that, you don't always connect with everybody on your team. And for different reasons, you're going to have different levels of connection, different levels of motivation, different levels of those things, right? Enthusiasm. Connect with what you need to be able to do that. Did something change for you? Are you feeling situated? Are you feeling significant? Are you feeling safe? Because sometimes our ability to provide that for our team is being impacted by our environments or the relationships that we have. So I think that's really important. That doesn't let us off the hook. Okay, I'm glad that it's helpful. Okay, all right, awesome. Okay, keep going. Yes, helpful, good, quick reset, self-check, absolutely. I'll tell you, I'll be honest. There were times over the years where I'm like, what do I know about my low motivation to connect with, Christopher? And it's like, yeah, I think our values are different and I don't respect him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I had to go, okay, his values aren't supposed to be mine. We're supposed to be going to the company values. So I was able to figure it out, Melanie. Okay, so yes, self-reflection, ask yourself those questions. Here we go, some more. Can you share on how we can shift if we're feeling resistance ourselves? Yes, absolutely, Eric, you're human. We're all human. Here's my favorite. Go back to your own purpose. Sit down and ask yourself, when you ask yourself, what am I doing this for? Why did I come into this role of leadership or insert parenting or insert coaching? We all have days, especially when you look at the world, where we get knocked off balance. It's so important for all of us I'll give you two practical strategies. Number one is connect back to your own purpose. What brought me here and what keeps me here? Right? Because sometimes when we reconnect to those, it gives us the ignition or the spark that we need to go a little bit longer. Similar to what I said to Melanie is to connect with what do I really need? My own core four, right? What do I need to feel better right now? And being honest with yourself, don't take the first two BS answers, right? Right? What do I value? Because see, I go back, Steve de Groot goes back to his values, and some of them are kindness, some of them are positive impact, some of them are growth, right? And I have to look at myself, Eric, and go, is what I'm doing that? And if it's no, maybe that's why I'm feeling a little bit disconnected or dislocated, right? So checking in on yourself. You could also go back and find out, when were you fired up? When were you motivated? What was going on at that time that contributed to that level of higher levels of motivation or effort, right? Versus feeling reluctant. Okay. Great questions, everybody. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if those are helpful. Okay, awesome. I got some people saying, okay, because sometimes I think I answer them, and here comes another question. Do you have thoughts on dealing with these challenges from a long-standing union-driven perspective? My brother from another mother, I spent 10 years working with unions where there's 3 unions, up to 5 unions. Yes. Now, these are also layered. So it all comes back to, and I know there's a lot of narratives around, some of the best people I met were union people. Now we've got to separate our frustration from some of the narratives, right? What do we really know about whatever the resistance is, long-standing? But here's one of the things, Mark, is if we just show up and it's said to be long-standing, it's not long-standing for us. So I think it's really important to go, this is just happening for me now. What do I know about this behavior from their perspective, and having a conversation about it? We've used a lot of this stuff that we're talking about with people that are on a daily basis working with unions to support staff to deal with difficult challenges. And what's really, really important to what we've learned, Mark, is that many people in those situations, their 3 great states have been compromised a long time ago. And Brenda and I are working with some big hospitals right now across Canada. We're actually sitting down and hearing situations where people have felt stuck with employees not talking, not cooperating, missing their PIPs, and they're just resetting. And they are just saying, let's reconnect. What do you need? Let's move it. Who do we need to have there? Let's slow down and create the 3 great states. And we're going to write about this, Mark, because what we're seeing and what we're documenting is in the impossibles bucket. Where if 100 people bet and said, would they turn that grievance around or drop that complaint against that doctor or do this, everybody would say no, and we're actually seeing it. And again, it's hard to believe again, and that's why we need each other, everyone here, to create your own evidence of better so that we can believe that these things work, and that when we experience opposition and resistance, it's often contextual. It's often happening in the relationship or the environment. It's often due to the 3 great states, one or more being compromised. It's sometimes, and I'll edge into our core stuff, is that sometimes we're missing the need that's driving this, or sometimes we're missing the values that are driving this behavior as well. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, Mark. If it was, okay, a great response. All right, if you could email my mother, she'd love to hear that. Okay, great questions. I wanted to also say, before there's any other questions, because I know some people jump off closer to the top of the hour. It was amazing that over 200 people registered. It was amazing that all of you people showed up. And one of the things that we want to do is create a Getting to Better community. Now, on the screen, if you haven't already done it, this is not, the newsletter list is not the webinar list. Those are 2 different lists. So if you are not on our Getting to Better newsletter, I want you on it. We want you on it. We're not going to sell you stuff. We want to give things away. We want to do more better blogs, better bites, better events, better training, better community. We want to work with all of you to get to better, right? So if you haven't already, please sign up. Having a community again is like when my child was born. I felt like, oh, I've got one to both take care of and, be involved in on my own. Got another question. And it looks like a big one, so bear with me. I also struggle with getting feedback. When I ask, how are you? I receive the standard answer, fine. And when I shift to what we agreed upon that is not being completed, then I get silence, or I didn't know. When I reframe and state how this affects the group and how I might support them, I feel that they give up or check out. And I feel like I am micromanaging instead of lifting others to a potential greatness. Well, let me tell you, and it's not anonymous, so Stephanie, I'm going to give you credit for this and call you. That is a great question. And I just want to say, they're fortunate. They're fortunate to have you as a person who thinks this deeply about their experience. And I want to say that to everybody here, right? You'll never be thanked enough when you come to a webinar and you try to get tools and knowledge to be better for the people you care for. So thank you for that. So this is a bit layered. One of the things I might make some assumptions, Stephanie, because we're in a transactional kind of situation, but I don't know all the details. One of the things, whenever I get the answer is fine, I hang in there for a while. I even say things, so you're fine. Can you tell me about that? Right? Because and they may say fine, and I'll say, can you tell me what you mean when you say fine? Like I gently, if it's fine again, I move on. The next thing I do is I comment on what I'm seeing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like regularly, it seems when I check in with you, you say you're fine. And that's all you say. Because it gives them an opportunity to say why that is, or even to go, I've had people go, oh, do I say fine all the time? Like literally, it's unintentional. And that may not be the case. So those are two things that I do. In this case, where they say they don't know or they didn't know, right? That's okay. Right? If they didn't get it, it's okay to say you didn't know. That's okay. How can I support you with this? Right? How can I support you to be more successful? Versus looking at it not being done, right? Because you don't want to micromanage. I see that. And most of us don't. And don't be afraid, Stephanie. My fourth suggestion is to say, I want to do my best to support you. And sometimes I feel like I'm micromanaging you, and I don't want that. What does supporting your success look like from your perspective? Okay. I'm going to add Stephanie. Oh, you love that. Good. Love is pretty high on the likability chart. Cool. I have one more thing to add because I know a lot of people here, we struggle with this. That's why I love the question. Gosh, there's some days I wish I met me 20 years ago. I'd have a whole year of my life back and less stress. And these have all been learned. So the last thing I'm going to say, Stephanie, to your incredible question is a lot of us have been trained to have conversations. I'm moving away from Stephanie's question when the shift hits, right? So a lot of people, leaders, even parents, we don't, like a lot of teenagers told me, I never hear from my parents until I'm in trouble. I hear kids in school say the only time you get called to the office is when you're in trouble. I hear employees say, I never hear from my manager unless I screw up. So this is real. This is so real. And one of the things we got to change, and my brother was a principal, so he made it his point to call, between 10 and 30 kids to the office for something nice every day over years, just so that when they heard come to the office. So we've got to make sure that our first conversation with some of our employees, our team members, is not about something that they didn't do or not something they didn't do well. We've got to change that ratio and have more positive conversations so that when they do screw up or when they do fall down or when they do get behind, their experience isn't that they matter when the work screws up or is not getting done. So thank you, Stephanie, for that. Some great questions. I'm glad that people are saying that this is helpful. So I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. Any more questions, folks? And I'd love to see you again. Like this is one of my people say, Steve, Brendan knows, people say, you're so busy. Why do you do these webinars? I love them. I love having you show up. I love learning from you. We love hearing from your questions. Our blog post that's coming out this week is called Why You Can't Wait, the Conversation You're Avoiding. Why did we write about that this week? Because that was like the number one conversation in medicine, in surgery, in mining, in nursing. We were going to Calgary, to Edmonton, to Sudbury, to Toronto, and everybody was saying, like, how do I have this conversation? We're like, we're going to write about it. And that's how we do these webinars. We want you to know that we hear you and we invite you into a community of getting to better so that we can continue to learn together. And here's the biggest thing. I know what it's like to be a leader and to struggle. Brenda knows what it's like. Our whole team knows what it's like. And it sucks to feel alone in that struggle or stuck. So I want to say before we go, because there's a lot of thank yous and stuff. So put whatever you need to put in the chat. I'm going to take one more minute. As humans, we are built for amazing things. Our potential is not even tapped. We're built for 100. Most of us are going 50. But when we feel the three great states, when we surround ourselves with people and environments that look at resistance and opposition as something that's contextual and relational and information, we can get to better faster. We can show up because not only do we create less suffering and less conflict, we open up and create conditions where our potential does not have to hide. Because I'm going to drop this, potential isn't locked, it's just hidden. We're built for better, and I look forward to getting there with you together. So thanks for showing up, everybody. Thanks to Brenda for helping and supporting with the webinar. Thanks everybody for taking the time to be here today. I just want to wish you the best in your journey getting to better in your life and at work. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.